Today we're making an incredible tofu stir fry. Tofu is coated in spices and fried until crispy. Then it's paired with some tender yet crisp vegetables and an outrageously good Chinese stir fry sauce. We're gonna get started with our vegetables. Once I move this very heavy wobbly tray over. I've got snap peas and bell peppers today. Snap peas are super easy because you don't have to prep them, which is great. The bell pepper, you only really need one bell pepper for this amount of stir fry, but I'm using half of yellow and half of red to make it like extra pretty. And for the bell peppers, I'm just gonna slice them thinly. First though, remove the core. Ta-da! In general, you want to use about a pound of vegetables. If you want to use different vegetables, that's totally fine. Check out the blog post because there's a whole section that has tips and substitutions on which vegetables to use and how long to cook them. Do the same for our red pepper. That is it for our vegetable prep, super quick. We'll also prep our garlic and ginger at this time, and I'm just going to chop them, not finely mince or dice them because we don't want them to stick to the wok and burn. For the ginger, I don't usually bother peeling it because it is edible and it's kind of annoying to peel, so I leave it on. Okay, vegetables are prepped, aromatics are prepped, and this is important. You do need to prep everything ahead of time because when it comes time to cooking the stir fry, it moves super quickly, so you don't have time to multitask. The next component of our stir fry is the sauce, and it is so easy, it takes 2 minutes, and it's so flavorful. We're gonna start with 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce. This is Chinese light soy sauce, but any standard grocery store Kikkoman soy sauce, whatever you want to call it, will work. And if you're gluten-free, make sure you use gluten-free soy sauce or tamari. This is 1.5 tablespoons. We're also going to do 1.5 tablespoons of rice vinegar for a little bit of tang. Hoisin sauce, this is made with fermented soybean paste, so it's really savory, but it's also salty and sweet, so you get a lot of complexity and depth of flavor with this. We want 2 tablespoons of this. This is Shaoxing wine. It's a Chinese rice wine. It's used very commonly in Chinese stir fries, and it's a little bit sweet, it's complex, it's a little tangy. We're gonna use 2 tablespoons of that. Now for one of my favorite ingredients, the spicy stuff. This is chili garlic sauce. Any kind of chili sauce will be fine. Y'all know I like it spicy, so I'm gonna use 2 tablespoons. But for most folks, I'd say start with 1 tablespoon. At this point, we have a lot of acidity and some spiciness, so to balance that, we're gonna add a little bit of sugar. I like brown sugar because it has a little more flavor than white sugar, so this is 1 tablespoon right now. Last ingredient, 3 tablespoons of vegetable broth or water. I happen to have leftover vegetable broth. If you don't, just use water, it's totally fine. Now it's time to shake it up. That's it. And you can actually double or triple this sauce because it'll stay good in the fridge for at least a week. If you're doing some sort of meal prep on Sunday, if you make the sauce, if you chop your vegetables, you're almost halfway done to making the recipe so you can make your stir fry even quicker. The last thing we're gonna prep is our tofu. You might have had a tofu stir fry before, that was fine, but we're going for an amazing tofu stir fry. So there's a couple steps we wanna take to make sure that our tofu is extra special. The first thing is to use previously frozen defrosted tofu. Pretty much always have a block of tofu in my freezer because freezing tofu changes the structure. So the water inside of the tofu, it turns to ice, it starts to expand. And when it thaws, you're left with like a spongy texture and lots of little holes, which means there's more surface area for the spices and the sauce to seep into, so you get more flavorful tofu. The second thing we're gonna do is to press our tofu, and the reason we do this is because the less water the tofu has, the more it can crisp up and the more flavor it can absorb. This has been pressed already for 10 minutes. Now it's time to cut the tofu, and for most stir fries, you probably would cube the tofu, but I think that cutting it into squares or rectangles works better. I like to slice it first into 2 vertical slabs, and then you just flip it on its side like this and cut it into slices, about 1/3 of an inch. Because these are thinner than your standard tofu cubes, they're gonna crisp up a lot easier. And unlike tofu cubes, which have lots of different sides, these just have 2 sides, so it's a lot easier to toss and flip them. The last technique we're gonna do to make our tofu amazing is to coat it before we cook it. First, for flavor, we're gonna add a few spices, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of white pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder as well, and a heaping 1/4 teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice powder. We also want to improve the tofu's texture, so I'm adding 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. You can use arrowroot powder if you prefer, and that's gonna give the tofu that nice crunchy coating. Smells good. I don't know what that voice was, but it smells good. Time to give our tofu some love. Sprinkle it on there. Now very gently, kind of coat the tofu, flip it. Tofu is delicate, so, treat her like a lady. This is very messy. 1 second. Oh, the pepper's gonna make me sneeze. Tofu looks good. While we have the cornstarch out, we're gonna quickly make our cornstarch slurry. We'll add that at the end and it's gonna make the stir fry glossy and thickened and beautiful. A teaspoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of cold water. All right, we are ready to start cooking, but first I'm gonna cook some rice so that we have something to serve our stir fry with. Also gonna chop some cilantro for our topping at the end. That looks like a good amount. Recipe calls for 3/4 cup, but just gonna eyeball it. And I use the leaves and tender stems. Stems are edible, they're delicious, but if they're thick, go ahead and omit them. All right, now it's time to cook. I'm using a wok today, but if you don't have one, just use a large frying pan. We're gonna heat it over medium-high. And the way to heat your wok is to heat it dry until you start to see light wisps of smoke. That's when you add the oil. This is going to prevent your tofu and your vegetables from sticking. You kind of have to lean down to see the wisps of smoke, and it's already happening. We're gonna add some high heat, neutral flavored oil into the pan. In she goes. Let me show you what it looks like. If you start to see the tofu char on the bottom, turn down the heat because you don't want the tofu to burn. If you have a wok, go ahead and shake the pan back and forth every minute or so, and that's gonna help the tofu not char as much. This is kind of what you're looking for, this nice golden brown color. You can see it's getting kind of smoky, so you might wanna open your windows. When it's time to take it off the heat, I like to put them on a paper towel just to absorb any of that excess oil. We're gonna give this wok a nice little wipe out. I don't know what a wipe out is. We're gonna wipe out the wok and then we'll start on the vegetables. Same principle, once you start to see wisps of smoke, add your oil. Just hanging out down here, waiting for those wisps of smoke. All right, it's time. Ginger and garlic just for 20-30 seconds. You wanna stir frequently, basically the whole time, so it doesn't burn. Show off your wrist skills. So colorful. If you were using some sturdy vegetables like broccoli or carrots, I would add them first for a minute or two, and then the tender vegetables like these. Time for our sauce. Sauce needs about 2.5 minutes. Smells great. Let's give you a look. It's bubbling. Let's stir our cornstarch slurry from earlier because the cornstarch will have settled. It's gonna thicken pretty quickly. This is gonna help the sauce kind of stick to the vegetables so it's not like watery and loose, it's more of a glossy, gorgeous texture. All right, kill the heat. Final touches. We're gonna add the tofu back in. Let's toss that in there. It's looking so good. Couple more ingredients to add more flavor and texture. Some toasted sesame oil, just a little drizzle, about 2 teaspoons. Some toasted sesame seeds. These are pre-roasted. 2 teaspoons of this as well, but I'm just gonna eyeball it. That chopped cilantro from earlier for a little bit of freshness. So colorful and pretty. Ooh, I can't wait to eat. All right, let's go make ourselves a bowl. By ourselves, of course, I mean me, but you will enjoy my enjoyment. Just look how pretty this is. It's so colorful. The tofu looks amazing. It's just the most inviting dish ever. There's stir fry, and then there's this stir fry. It's unbelievable. The tofu is still crunchy. The flavors are just like party for your mouth. Spicy, savory, a little sweet, tangy, just like everything you'd want in a stir fry. You can get the full printable recipe in the blog post. It's linked below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.